had been scrambled, I believe, from Otis at that point.
This testimony was omitted by the final report because it conflicted with Vice President Dick Cheney's alibi. When Lee Hamilton, the chair of the commission, was later asked about this, he said, "I do not recall." When pressed, he expands, "Well, we think that Vice President Cheney entered the bunker shortly before 10 o'clock, and there is a gap of several minutes there where we do not really know what the Vice President really did. There's a famous phone call between the President and the Vice President. We could find no documentation, no documentary evidence of that phone call." End quote. Most people also assume that these things could not be kept secret because someone in such a vast operation would blow the whistle. The problem there is that there have been several very public whistleblowers regarding 9/11, like Sybil Edmonds, William Bergman, Colleen Rowley, J. Michael Springman, Robert Wright, Indira Singh, Barry Jennings, and Richard Andrew Grove. But I guess they were not important enough to dominate news cycles. I find all this highly offensive. Highly offensive. Who do they think they are? Who do they think we are? Why are they treating us like naive children with all this propaganda used to overcome the basic laws of physics and rational logic? What kind of f***ed-up game is this? In retrospect, it feels like a horror movie, and with some eyes open in the audience yelling, "Don't go in there! Don't go into that mindset that bad guy led you right into! That paradigm's gonna take us right to a war!" Coming soon to a theater near you, Q 24/7, trapped in the corporate industrial complex. If you haven't already, it's absolutely required that you find out what information is out there on this event, unless you wish to repeat history, and you wish your children to repeat history, and so on. For an overview of the applicable laws of physics, check out a 10-minute or 2-hour video, Blueprint for Truth, by Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. For analysis on the official narrative, evidence, and 9/11 Commission report, I recommend starting with David Ray Griffin's 9/11, The Myth and the Reality, an excellent lecture. Then watch Loose Chain's Final Cut for some deeper follow-up info if interested. Once you're convinced of how appallingly ridiculous the official story for 9/11 is, you might want to watch Fabled Enemies to start investigating the leads as to who might have actually carried the attacks out. These are all free to watch online, just Google it, because I have only scratched the surface here. You can also search in altbib.com for every mainstream article presented in those films and read each entire article to see if the evidence is taken out of context, exaggerated, or just to add or remove salt from your take on that piece of evidence. You can try to search for follow-up information on those documents to see if it was later refuted, etc. The process will continue being made easier by my new tool on altbib.com, Research Alongs. Check it out, but there will be more on this coming soon. If this information is new to you, please do your best not to be afraid. It takes almost everyone at least a year or two to really come to terms for most of this evidence against the official story. But at some point in the future, you will look back feeling more open-minded and enlightened, and more impressed with humanity's ability to fight back with information, knowledge, and the shining light of truth. The 9/11 Truth Movement is a truly awe-inspiring story of major underdogs with the truth on their side, which I publicly joined all too late but followed from the start. For the past 8 years, I was effectively self-censored, completely silencing these views of mine for fear of diminishing my credibility for my active, public, and already stigmatizing work fighting to end the war on drugs. But for a few years now, there has just been far too much solid and scientific evidence to ignore this reality. I don't think we have enough evidence yet to know what really happened, but the last 8 years of work in the open source intelligence by the 9/11 Truth Movement and its friends have provided ample evidence for a controlled demolition of the official narrative into its own footprint. The 9/11 Commission was a cover-up of the highest order, on par with the Warren Commission. We just don't know exactly what was covered up. So problem. 9/11. Reaction: war versus anti-war. Solution: removal of rights, then mission accomplished.
You're free, and freedom is beautiful. And, it'll take time to restore chaos and order, order out of chaos, but we will.
Instead of debating whether or not we should have gone to war, we first really need to determine whether or not anyone from another country actually attacked us. We needed to first be absolutely sure that elements of our own government were not more responsible than other parties and had not intentionally allowed the attacks to happen. We needed to investigate the crime first. Outside of shoot-'em-up movies, are the police allowed to shoot up a whole neighborhood searching for someone before proving beyond a reasonable doubt that they committed a crime? In this crime, as much evidence as possible was destroyed, omitted, or shielded with state secrecy and national security. The narrative in the mainstream media was limited to debating whether or not we should go to war, not about what actually happened and why. We have to learn from our history to see that many administrations are willing to lie during these situations to maximize their power and to use the mainstream media to propagate these lies. And we ourselves must be more critical of the information we are provided now that we are living in an age of freedom of choice of information. Even the mainstream media has recognized the similarities between the current Iraq-Afghanistan wars and the Vietnam War from pretty early on. But we have not been able to stop our war machine. Eisenhower warned us, but now it's all grown up. Now these examples are offensively similar and blatant, but the formula applies to many types of situations and scales. For example, problem: the Oklahoma City bombing. Reaction: domestic extremists are a threat to national security. Solution: increased targeting of domestic threats. We're gonna need some of those rights of yours. Oh, and if you agree that our government is becoming oppressive, can you please hold a stigma for us? The official story is that Timothy McVeigh accomplished this attack alone, and I feel confident enough that at least this is not true. But as always, whether or not there is a comprehensive conspiracy directly manifesting in this event, the results are the same, and the agenda of choice moves forward. For more on this info, I recommend starting by listening to the Corbett Reports, episode number 38, OKC was an inside job, and episode 140, Requiem for the Suicided, Terrence Yeakley. If you're still interested, please check out all the documentation he provides. Do some more research into all other evidence you can find, applying your best guess as to how much salt to add every step of the way, and come to your own conclusion based on all the evidence you can lay your eyes on. For this is the best any of us can do. Problem: global financial crisis. Reaction: subprime mortgages and derivatives are the cause. We need bailouts to buy out the bank's toxic assets. Solution: actually, we're just going to buy up some struggling banks while further consolidating wealth, power, and grip on markets. Economics is surprisingly fascinating and pervasively important to every other field of interest. So I encourage you to check out Corbett Reports episodes number 5, Central Banking is a Hoax. Number 13, The Dollar Crash of 2007. Number 64, End the Fed. Number 76, Meet the Real Economists. Number 120, Economics 101. Number 122, Hello Iceland. And number 139, Know Your History, Colonial Script. Problem: healthcare crisis caused by decades of stalling without much needed reform to our greed-oriented healthcare system. Reaction: public option versus anti-public option. Solution: corporate fellatio, a few nice concessions for a segment of the population, but overall, will this really be a step in the right direction? Is it one step forward with 2 steps back? Take a look at poor Dennis Kucinich's face on Democracy Now! After he was persuaded by Obama during an Air Force One flight into voting for the healthcare bill. Now, I sure haven't read the whole bill or attempted to understand it all, but my gut says that there's more cumulative help in there for Big Pharma than for average citizens not part of the pharmaceutical or medical industrial complex.